Hello, my name is Tabitha, and this is my channel, We the Foxen. So, yeah, it's been a minute. I know that in my last video or two that I was really excited to be getting back to doing videos after the kids finally went back to school, but then I had some trouble. I wasn't feeling well physically. I definitely wasn't feeling well mentally, and though that is still kind of the case, I'm feeling a little bit better, and I wanted to get something up because I wanted to share what I've been reading. So I think instead of pushing myself to do a wrap-up every month, maybe I'll just do quarterly. So the first 3 months just about finished, and I've read about 26 books, I think. But what I want to do is, for my wrap-up, do the books that I really enjoyed. And this time it's about 8 books in the last 3 months that have really affected me, that I really liked, or I was surprised by how much I liked it, or almost made me cry. So there's those are kind of the criteria that I'm going with right now. I'm feeling really awkward talking to the camera again. It's like I started all over again. In no particular order, let's get to it. First, there is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. This was a super fun book. A lot of these I'm late to the party, so this book was so fun, and at times it made me sad, and at times it made me laugh. So for those of you who don't know, This Is How You Lose the Time War is about two rival factions who are diametric opposites. They are red and blue are the combatants, agents that you follow. They at first are just admiring each other's work, being a bit pithy with each other. Red's faction is more tech-based, Blue's faction is more organic-based. So it's the garden and the, I don't remember what the other faction was called. Agency. Yeah, the garden and the agency. And they're in this time war, trying to fix things or change things in their favor. That part isn't really delved into. It's more about these letters between red and blue and how you watch them fall in love from afar, and leaves off on a cliffhanger. There is a cliffhanger scene in the book. Without any spoilers, that ripped my heart out. It was just a lot. But this book was so fun, and it ends on such a high note. But like I said, it's a cliffhanger. And I know in one of my book tag videos, I said that I don't like cliffhangers, usually, but this one fit because it was a happy one. Weird way to say it, but yeah, This Is How You Lose the Time War. It's a really good book. Another short one that I picked up was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. So what it is a group of crowd-funded, publicly funded astronauts get sent off to explore a solar system or various planets. I think it is in one solar system. And what they do, instead of trying to solve the problem of space travel and radiation and aging and whatnot, essentially they've figured out this agency has figured out to essentially biohack the bodies to make the bodies more suitable to the situations that they'll be going into. So if there's low light, make them a little bioluminescent. If there is high gravity, make their bodies stronger. Things like that. This is a very character-driven novella. I don't know if you want to call it a novella. Maybe it is. But the characters are very, very vibrant, and you feel their pain, you feel their joy, and you feel their indecision. Like, it's such a big book, or such a short book. So the reason why it was called To Be Taught If Fortunate was recorded on the golden record for the Voyager probe that was sent out in 1977. So it is from the UN Secretary General at the time, and he says, "We step out of our solar system into the universe, seeking only peace and friendship, to teach if we are called upon, to be taught if we are fortunate." And that is the complete embodiment of this story, is that we go out with this one idea, and with everything that happens to the astronauts, with everything that happens on Earth that they see decades after the fact, they want to know, like, we go out wanting to teach ourselves, but we end up learning that we are the ones that are being taught. I'm not explaining the thought well, but the feeling is that the title perfectly exemplifies the story that I learned after the fact and not going into it. That's why it was called what it is. And it's one of those books that, though it's short, like, the whole story, like, seeing the whole picture makes it that much better. And by the end of this book, the last line, I was like, I was smiling. Like, it was one of those, it's not necessarily a feel-good story, but it made me feel good. That makes sense. So there's that one. And I think I spoke about this before, but Prosperos Demon by K.J. Parker. It's a really short novella, like, it's 100 pages. And I love that cover. But it is very evocative of the story itself. Demon Hunter finds a demon inhabiting a genius, so like a Leonardo da Vinci type, and makes a deal with him. And at first the demon is surprised, but you shouldn't be. It's fun. It's funny. The end, like I was describing in To Be Taught If Fortunate, the punchline in this one is literally a punchline. It's funny, and a very short read. I recommend everyone read this because it's fun. I know there's a second one, I think, in the same universe that Parker has released. It was a fun read. Made me laugh at the very end. Going on to something a little bit more weird. This one, I think, was a very small publisher from the UK. So it's Supercute Futures by Martin Miller. I was just grabbed by the title and the cover because they're super fun. And the story ended up really catching me. This one is about two super genius kids when they begin. I think the story takes place much later. Super genius kids who love everything super cute, kawaii, Harajuku, like all that sort of anime Supercute stuff. They call their business Supercute. They start a YouTube channel. They're geniuses, so they try to see if they can like solve the world's problems or even educate people. They have bought a desalination company to help with water shortages, and multiple things like that, but they also aren't as well-intentioned always. They're very pragmatic, and I don't know, I'm not explaining it well. It's a really good book. It's a very little known book, but Supercute Futures is really weird. It is a action economic takeover near future spy story. It's all those things at once, but none of those things singularly. It all kind of makes up the story itself. I was a little surprised at the end. One of the ways that Mox and Min, they... Aesop, yeah, my goodness. Where one of the choices they make really shows their pragmatism and almost that they are sociopathic, maybe, just a little bit. I don't know. But it's fun. There's body modification to the extreme. YouTube rivalries, even though it's not YouTube really anymore. Personalities becoming companies. It's scary accurate as to how YouTube started and where it could possibly go in the future with online personalities. And that future is frightening and weird and fun, but very frightening. But I suggest, if you like funny, weird sci-fi, read this book. It's like YouTube mixed with Neuromancer, but easier to understand. But easier to understand than Neuromancer. So there's that. Supercute Futures. Kat, you're making this so difficult. Supercute Futures by Martin Miller. Really good. That was fun. Next would be... You are making this so difficult, Aesop. So difficult. Can you just sit? God, you're fat. Okay, sit, sit, sit! You're making this so awkward. The next one would be The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I loved The Night Circus. Loved it. I've read it, I think, 2 or 3 times. At least 2 times. This one will definitely get reread. I think I liked the ending of The Night Circus better than The Starless Sea. But overall, like the second person perspective chapters in this, kind of like with the Night Circus, were entertaining. It kind of fills out the history of this place. But the ending of The Starless Sea was a lot more psychedelic. Just in that it was a little bit more of an acid trip. Whereas in The Night Circus, the ending made a little bit more sense. And it was a little bit more grounded in reality, even though you're dealing with like real magic and everything. The Night Circus was more grounded in reality than the ending of The Starless Sea. However, I loved the world built in The Starless Sea. It was immersive and extremely odd and artistic, and it really pulled at my love of books and anything art and literature related. this whole society of people trying to preserve things, and they're different, the two factions, are different views on how things should be preserved. The symbolism of keys and books and bees, and the whole idea of the Starless Sea, and all of that thrown in with two love stories. You think it's just one, but it ends up being two. And it's, no, actually three. Yeah. Oh, wow. So all of that together is just beautiful. The stories telling the story of the story. It's very incepted. But it was, I absolutely loved it right until the weird ending, but still, I loved it. It was really, really fun. And next is, this one kind of destroyed me. It was Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa C. I devoured this book. I loved it. And it made me cry. Like, I tried very hard not to cry because I was around my kids and that would have been weird. But like, I do believe a tear or two actually came out. It's a beautiful and heartrending story about two friends, and how when you grow up, you can believe that you have this inimitable bond with someone. You think you know everything about each other, and you never tell secrets, and then you find out that secrets were kept, lies were told. That leads to misunderstanding and heartbreak. And what you thought you knew, you didn't know. That's not all what was happening. And it's one of those, am I the asshole kind of stories? And you are. But the story between them, between Lily and Snowflower, is just so beautiful and so sad. And how Lily, in the end, like, she's writing this when she's in her 80s. And this is feudal Japan, or imperial Japan, not Japan, China. And then it's just like this small county in the west of the country. So like little towns, lots of tradition, social climbing, misunderstandings. And it's just these two girls trying to live their lives as best they can and trying to do what they think is right and not always getting it right. But it was just such a beautiful story, and it's fairly short, and it's like Memoirs of a Geisha. I don't know, it could have just been that it was two girls who misunderstood each other, and I'm socially awkward, and so I've had a lot of those. Maybe that's why it just hit a lot harder than Memoirs of a Geisha did. But yeah, this was an amazing book, Snowflower and the Secret Fan. If you want to read some historical fiction, it's about foot binding and the social mores of that and how it can help or hurt you. If you want a good coming of age story, if you want to have your heart broken, I would suggest read Snowflower and the Secret Fan. The most recent book that I have finished was Brown Girl in the Ring by Nalo Hopkinson. Now this one, I remember when I did it in the book haul, I did it a little dirty. Didn't quite understand what was going on when I hauled it and described it, but My God, is this a fun book? It is really fun. And it shows, it's a little hard to get into if you're not used to the Caribbean English. I believe they're supposed to be Jamaican. So perhaps do the audiobook, either solely or following along with the physical copy. Because some of the sentence structures and tenses that is used are not exactly easy for some people if you're not used to it. But this was really fun, especially finally when the spirits, like the are they called orishas? The is it voodoo? I don't quite remember. Anyway, the religious practice or spiritual practice where they call down, I think in this book they called him Legbara, and I've always known him as Papa Legba, but it's similar to Princess Cemeteries. So it's a god of life and death. Then there's Osain, Oshun, a bunch of these divine spirits that end up being brought forward, and they were fun. Like once the spirits ended up coming up, or if you want to be a little bit more simple, if once these gods show up, the story gets really fun. But it's a lot. If you're not used to the lingo, as it were. It's almost like trying to understand someone's accent that you're unfamiliar with. And once you get used to it, you can understand. But it's a little jarring at first to a Anglo ear. But it was a good time. I will definitely be reading more by her, Nalo Hopkinson. This book was so fun, and it's going to definitely have a reread. And it's set in my city. I didn't even understand. It just said in the city on the back of the book, and I didn't even recognize the bloody CN Tower here. Like, I thought that was the Space Needle from Seattle, maybe. I don't know. But this is set in Toronto, and I was like, holy crap, I've been there. I know that place. I know exactly where that is. And for anyone who is reading this, just a quick message note. It's pronounced Etobicoke, not Ibitoki or Tobicoke. It's Etobicoke. I know there's a K in there. It's weird. And Scarborough, kind of like Edinburgh. Scarborough. That one's a little bit easier, but Etobicoke is based on a Ojibwa word. So that's why it's hard for anyone who's not familiar. It's one of the, now it's an amalgam of the GTA, so the Greater Toronto Area, but it was originally its own city, kind of like North York was its own city, Scarborough was its own city, Etobicoke was its own city, and now it's all part of the GTA. So it's all Toronto now. But yeah, it's fun to read a Jamaican magical realism in my hometown. Like, that was fun. Something that I haven't really gotten into, but I really enjoyed it. I was getting a little annoyed with the main character, Tijan. But I think that's the same reason why I got so annoyed with Holden in Catcher in the Rye, because I see so much of my own indecision and contrariness and contradictoriness to myself in these characters, so maybe that's why I get annoyed so much with them. But it was a really good time, really fun. And finally, this book really shook me. Again, late to the story, The Traitor, Barrow, Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. This was the first book that I have ever fully annotated, and I was just, everything in this book, every decision that Barrow makes, right up until the end, like, you don't know who she works for. Is it solely herself Does she work for the Masquerade? Does she work for what ends up being the resistance in this country that she's been sent to? I'm not going to get too much into the story because there would be a lot of spoilers, but again, queer fiction, completely, this book will destroy you. I know there's a lot of people who kind of hate it because of the queer representation in it. I myself am not one of those. I don't quite understand. Being a queer woman in a cis hetero relationship only gives me so much cachet, right? So I can't speak to anyone else's grievances with this book. However, I love this book so much, and I am so glad I have the next two. I know the fourth one will be coming out soon. And they seem to just be getting bigger and bigger. But this book just shook me. Like the final decision in this book shook the characters in the book. And I was just like, what did you just do? I was hollowed out and amazed by this book. So I suggest you read it. And I'll be getting to the next ones. Hopefully I'll get to the second one this year, but I've got over 260 physical books that I need to get to, and I don't read that fast. Alright, so those were my first quarter roundup for 2022. Those are just the books that I really enjoyed, so maybe I will be doing another series of roundups of books that were just and I haven't really hated anything yet, but I'm definitely at the end of the year going to do a books I hated video. So maybe I'll just do the mediocre roundups quarterly as well, and hopefully I can do this more frequently now that I'm in a little bit better of a headspace. So let me know if any of those books are something that you have read, that you liked, didn't like, or just interested in reading. Alright, let me know down in the comments. Like if you like this video, and subscribe if you like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!